Making the invisible visible. Black women, 365 days of the year. Each day will spotlight a remarkable woman whose story has shaped Black, British or global diasporic history. Women whose achievements are too often overlooked. Through these daily short films, we create a living, breathing archive of leadership, creativity, resistance and legacy. Let's begin.
Hi, I'm Shay-yee Ah-kee-wo-wo and I am a digital wellness expert that works across governance, systems design and reimagining a healthier relationship with tech. I'm also the author of a wonderful book called How to Stay Safe Online. Who am I really is somebody who loves thinking and being by the beach, walking her dog, listening to vinyl record players while thinking about how we can slow down our relationship with tech and AI. I guess what I try and do is tell the story that if we can incorporate slowing down and rest and joy and more wholesomeness in what we look for in tech, perhaps that would begin to shift the way that we use tech for power and domination, monopolization of power and resources, when it should be really about how do we redistribute wealth and mobilize resources to level the playing field. When I hear the word motion, I think about different rhythms. There are sometimes rhythms in my work that requires me being quite reactive. It requires me responding to the news, and I try to not get stuck and sucked into that, because you can just constantly be reacting to the news and not giving yourself time for systems thinking and governance and leadership and accountability and those bigger picture moments. But when something really is going to have a ripple effect that I think has not been well thought out or considered or consulted on, I do try to respond to those. And that requires a kind of motion of reactivity and thinking on my feet. And I think that's kind of the kind of freestyle dancer in me. I used to be a professional and competing dancer and won loads of competitions around the world, and I loved freestyling, but it also requires a little bit of a different energy from you. I also work in motion with slower rhythms, like long-term partnership building, community building, trust building, and that's another motion I like working with. Curiosity and being more curious opens for relearning, unlearning, working and playing with different modalities. I like working with astrology alongside proverbs in the Bible, alongside Instagram quote memes, and I like bringing all of these different tools together when facilitating events, conversations, workshops, trainings, and even my book, right? So that people feel like there is a provocation, but they're not being shamed, they're being held and guided. The aftermath of the speech that I made at the European Parliament going viral, and then facing this backlash of online harms and abuse, and seeing how the systems offline and online and even the civil society groups were not capable or had the capacity and the muscle yet to support minoritized communities. There was a lot of education work I had to do with Amnesty and other civil society groups, political parties. I was held beautifully by an organization called Association of Progressive Communications, who are a global South-based movement across South Africa and Nepal and South America, who brought me on a journey and taught me about conflict and taught me about being anonymous and why that is a privacy right that shouldn't come at the expense. We shouldn't trade it for safety, that there are ways in which we can have the two coexist, and provide challenge to them in the labels around the global north and global south, where social media was beginning to divide our movements. And working with them changed my perspective in really embodying a Black feminist practice that has served me in my work in mobilizing £2.6 million for online gender-based violence and mainstreaming that issue from an intersectional lens at a time where people weren't really understanding what it was like to be a woman online or a disabled person online. I wish more people knew how deeply committed and passionate I am to multi-directional solidarity and allyship. And that I can hold compassion and also be impatient, because being brave as a Black woman in these political times with the backlash that I faced comes at a cost. And having to consistently and constantly explain my dignity and explain my rights, people are often inspired and feel braver by seeing me step into my truth and try and embody my truth. But I often hope and wish that people knew that that sometimes comes at a cost, more than I would like, and more than there needs to be if more people were braver, who had greater proximity to power and safety. And I wish that more people knew how much I love tech. Like, talking about tech responsibility comes from a joyful place. It comes from a place of where I do think that it can be a real colourful, multifaceted universe and escapism and extension than what we have, which is a vilification of scapegoating psychological games that we're seeing in organizations, in workplaces, in schools, and now online. And we just don't need that much drama. So yeah, I just wish people knew how much I'm so committed to multi-directional solidarity. I just wish more people would join us.
Thank you for joining us for today's story. Making the Invisible Visible is our commitment to ensuring that Black women's histories and contributions are recognised, valued and kept in daily circulation. Across 2026, we will continue to share these powerful narratives, 365 days of impact, brilliance and inspiration. Stay connected, join the conversation and help us champion the women whose journeys continue to shape our world. I'm Paulette Brooks, and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next story.